The Am I Okay podcast is part of the Practice of the Practice Network, a network of podcasts seeking to help you market and grow your business and yourself. To hear other podcasts like Faith Fringes, the Holistic Counseling Podcast, and Beta Male Revolution, go to the website www.practiceofthepractice.com/network. Welcome to the Am I Okay podcast, where you will discover that being highly sensitive is something to embrace and is actually a gift you bring to the world. We will learn together how to take ownership of your high sensitivity so you can make positive changes in your life, in the lives of others, and it's totally okay to feel this way. I'm your host, Lisa Lewis. I'm so glad you're here for the journey. Welcome to today's episode of the Am I Okay podcast. This is Lisa Lewis, your host. I'm so happy to have you listening in today. And during the month of June, I am interviewing guests who are providing something for all of us, whether it's you're seeking spiritual seeking in your life, partnership seeking, financial seeking, or just better lifestyle seeking, and maybe it's all of the above. Well, my guest today is going to share with us how we are all divine alchemists and how the key is to understand that we are more powerful than we've been led to believe, because what we think we create and thus manifest into existence. So just take a moment, pause. I'm going to say that again because I think it's so key. The key is to understand that we are more powerful than we've been led to believe, because what we think we create and thus manifest into existence. My guest today is Brigitta. She is a soul empowerment coach, light language healer, and divine channel, delivering messages from the many master teachers to the aid of humanity. She has overcome an eclectic mixed bag of trauma, learning from her experiences, ultimately forgiving both herself and others in order to live a far more wholesome life. Welcome to the show, Brigitta.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's so good to have you here, and I can't wait to get started and to hear about what we think we create and thus manifest into our own existence. And I'm that brought up when I was just reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about all of these things that have happened in my life this past year and a half. And so we can get more into that.
Yep.
But as I like to ask all my guests that come onto this show, do you consider yourself a highly sensitive person or not? And if so, or if not, can you share a story about that?
Yeah, I'm highly sensitive. If you want to call me an empath, you can call me that too, or a SpongeBob. Same thing, but I've learned to how do you say to create barriers so that people don't drain me. But yes, I am highly sensitive, and I think I've always been highly sensitive, even as a kid. When we talk about highly sensitive and everything, it's understanding people before they even open their mouth. You get a sense of them. But even as a kid, I already saw things. Like I remember my guide at the time, and a woman, and she was in the form of like a teacher, in a school, in a classroom. So I've always had that. But I think when you are very highly sensitive, you attract a lot of crap. Excuse my French. But that's just the way it is. And I always say, when you are very highly sensitive, it's not a curse, it's a gift. So embrace it.
I love that. And that's what I've been trying to do in my life, is to really embrace it. And I hear you about we do collect or attract a lot of crap, and it's constantly clearing out that crap.
Yes.
And maybe can you tell us why we attract that?
We attract that because these are the experiences that we've asked for. And these experiences are not meant to taunt us, but they're actually meant to elevate us. So the question you have to ask yourself is, whatever you go through, whatever trauma that you go through, are you going to sit and wallow in your self pity, or are you going to take responsibility for your life and say, you know what? You put on your big girl pants and you say, you know what? I've got this. I can do this. I can overcome this. And people say, yeah, but I didn't ask for this. Well, actually, you did. And then when we get into stuff like abuse, because, I was abused as a kid and I probably signed up for it, because if that hadn't happened to me, if I wasn't abused as a kid, and if everything else that I had to endure for many, many years after that, I would not be who I am today. And so, whatever you go through, see other people as teachers, as mere reflections of of what you need to heal within yourself. And I think you need to switch that around. So rather than sitting in that victimhood, it's like, what can I do to improve my life? How can I improve my life?
I love that. And sometimes improving your life is um, standing up for yourself, cutting people out of your life that
Yes.
are draining you, draining your energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you've been through that. I've been through it. Many other people have been through it. And I will give you an example just in this eclectic, mixed bag of trauma that I went through, that consisted of, abuse by a friend of the family when I was 10 years old. And in the 1980s, life was different. So we didn't talk about that. And I kept it within till I was 19 years old. And I finally told my mom, after my sister, and I watched an Oprah Winfrey episode where she talked about abuse. My mom was like, well, I'm so glad it didn't happen to either of you. Well, I kept my mouth shut, and then she looked at me, and so then it finally came out. And the first thing she said to me, well, Brigitte, was it your father? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. And I explained to her who it was, and she was shocked. But because when we go through trauma like that, right, it cascades, and you don't heal it, it cascades into every area of your life as you grow older. Because I used to starve myself. I used to throw away my lunches at school, and I was already skinny. I had knobbly knees like a giraffe anyway. But I wanted to be invisible, so I really walked around like the hunchback of Notre Dame. And then I lost my dad when I was 14. So that also dented my confidence. I was bullied in high school. I had an incredible fear of teenage boys in high school because I was so insecure. I had no self worth. And that, when my mom put me on a modeling course, just to crank up my confidence, well, that didn't really help either, because I was I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was literally Atlas. And
Hmm.
I mean, a hairdresser picked me out, cut all my long hair off, and boom, I had a pixie cut. I felt horrified. I felt ugly. But in the modeling industry, I mean, I could never live with it. But to continue that, it's like I was also assaulted in the modeling industry. So it continued on and on and on. And because of that, my relationships that I was in, they were all dysfunctional. And it took me to well in my 30s that I really started to look at myself. But during that time, I was always starving myself because that was something that I could control. And the other thing is, I don't care if you put me in the desert. I worked like a maniac because I was playing Houdini with my emotions. I was running from them because I didn't want to face them. I didn't want to face the issues that I had. But it took me years to figure that out.
Wow. That's incredible. That's quite a story. And why do you Why do you think, or why do we often attract and end up in dysfunctional relationships?
Because that's so I always say this, and what we vibe out is exactly what we reel back in, because it's the energy that we vibe out. So when we hum at a low frequency, as I like to call it, then these are the people that we will attract. And so these are exactly the kind of people that I needed in my life, right, to show me what I needed to heal within myself, because I was attracting broken birds. But, I myself was a broken bird. So what did I want? Well, I looked for refurbishment projects to see how I could change them. But the important thing to understand for me was that I needed to change myself.
And how did you do that? How did you end up changing yourself?
I wish when I was born, I wish I had a cheat sheet around my neck, but unfortunately, no. I mean, some of the relationships I was in were very, very traumatic. But yeah, I think it took me until 2009 when my ex was he was held for ransom by the Crips in Holland. He had a drug problem. He's actually doing really well now for himself in the
Oh,
States.
that's great.
Yeah, he's turned his life around completely. So kudos to him. And that was like a wake-up call. It was a rude awakening for me because I had my life threatened. My mom had to take me out of Holland in the space of a few days. Then I ended up saving my ex's life with the help of the police in Holland. But I downed a whole box of ibuprofens, and all it did for me was I got a good night's sleep, a very, very long night, I think 12 hours of sleep, and I woke up without a headache. And my mom said to me, Brigitte, why don't you go see a counselor? And I did. But the counselor said to me, Brigitte, well, you're strong enough. You'll be fine. Well, I didn't want to hear that. So I needed to figure out, what am I going to do to heal myself? Now, I went the holistic route. And remember, everyone is different. So you have to do, if you want to get better, if you want to heal yourself, do whatever agrees with your own spirit. For me, it was Reiki, and that's how I rolled into um, studying Reiki. And I did level 1 and 2, and many years later, I did the masters, and I taught Reiki. But I studied a lot, and I wanted to understand why I was the way I was. And it's gradually, and when we heal, it's like, I always say we're like this onion, and every experience we go through and we look at ourselves and we reevaluate our lives, it's like we peel back that onion and we cry and we hug it out with ourselves and we forgive ourselves and the other parties involved. And it's all about returning to that love for ourselves and having that love for ourselves and accepting ourselves the way that we are. It doesn't matter what you've done or whatever your experiences have been. There isn't really good or bad. It's merely experiences that we go through. And don't feel guilty. Don't have that fear within you. And that was something that I really, really had to learn, because I was always fearful of hurting others. And because I had that ingrained within me, I was treated like a doormat because
Mm-hmm.
I asked for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really about learning to really look at myself and be honest with myself and just take accountability for everything that I went through rather than pointing fingers, because that's what we often do. And I say to people, please stop pointing fingers. You want to get better, then you need to start doing the work.
And you mean you need to start doing the work, or the people that you're pointing fingers at or need to do the
Yes.
work?
No, well, whether they do the work or not, but it's really, you yourself will need to do the
And
work.
what does that look like? And what did you do to um, start working on yourself?
Many things. Yeah, many things. So, like I said, I started off with Reiki, and then I did the emotional freedom technique training, which is tapping out the emotions out of your system. And it's such a beautiful technique. And it's so powerful because once you've tapped the emotions out of that experience, you can talk about it without being triggered, right? Because that's the thing, we trigger ourselves. We keep the experiences in the archives of our minds, and it's bulging to the seams because we alchemize nothing. We merely put it in a filing cabinet within our minds. And I did, what else did I do? Meditation, relaxation therapy. I studied aromatherapy, aroma touch, many other healing modalities. And when I went through another very traumatic experience when I was out in Florida with an ex who wouldn't leave me alone, he just kept hounding me. And, in every single relationship that I had been in, I technically enabled them because I supported them financially. And I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't know it at the time. Everyone has their own journey to walk, but often what we try and do is we try to help out the other person to make ourselves feel better. And that's not the right way. And so for me, I walk through past lives through when I walk through the Akashic Record healing. And that was very powerful to me because I carried so much trauma from past lives into this lifetime. And one of them was with my ex in Florida who poisoned me in another lifetime in the Middle Ages, somewhere in Europe. And it was funny because the trauma, when I was with him, I had terrible stomach pains and I lost so much weight. I was like skin over bones because I couldn't hold any food in. And so she explained that to me without me having told her anything. And she became my mentor, actually, Alania Starhawk. But from that point, I did a workshop and she taught me to channel. And that was the one thing that was my saving grace because I was so far gone. I was so exasperated. And she gave me this beautiful exercise. Actually, the whole group, she gave an exercise. And she just said, she started out, she merely had a pen and a paper, and she just said to Spirit, I'm ready to receive. And that was very powerful to me. And I went home and I did that, exactly that. And the words just started to flow. And I was actually crying tears of joy because I'd never experienced that before. And that was a very powerful healing process for me. So all the healing modalities that I studied and all the healers that I had been to, because it was a gradual process, every single time it was like I was learning a little bit about myself. I was learning to let go. And it didn't happen overnight, of course. It took several years for me. But channeling was my saving grace. And I started to ask questions like, about the healing process. And the responses that I got were just, amazing. And it was always about that return to, loving yourself. And that's easier said than done because, my dad, when he was alive, he used to say, look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself. Now, how hard is that? How many people can do that?
I use that with clients, and I usually challenge them to do it for like 40 days to look in themselves in the mirror and tell them
Yeah.
like for a minute. And they say it's very challenging. Like they can't in the beginning, or maybe it's just like looking at a part of your body, but then at the end, it's really gazing into your own eyes in the mirror and
Yes.
telling yourself that you love you. I
Yeah.
love you.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. I love you. And And that is hard. And you know why? It's because of society and just the way this whole, I always call it an artificial society because it is so artificial. Everything is like social media and you have to be a certain way. No, you don't. You honestly, you're beautiful regardless of what people say. You're beautiful. And I'm a classic example. I beat myself up, right? I didn't eat.
Mm.
Oh, I could. Yeah, that's the thing. I hated myself for the longest time. And took, like I said, it took me many years, and I'm still a work in progress, Lisa. We never stop learning. But the other very important thing, some people will think, yeah, but does that really help? Like meditation. But breathing is so important. But I always say to people, well, just type in David Ji in YouTube and just listen. Just plug in your earphones and listen to his 20-minute meditations. And when you do, you will feel a lot calmer than what you were 20 minutes ago. And it's just very, very powerful. These are very simple exercises.
They are. I listened to Jason Stevenson. If you're familiar with him, I think he's out of
No, I don't know
Australia.
him.
And these are meditations you listen to at night and you fall asleep, and they run like 2 or 3 hours, and it's amazing.
Really? I must listen to
Yeah,
him. Must
I
do
love
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same with like 432 hertz. Some are like 5 to 9 hours long,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just you listen to this. It's very soft because I don't really like binaural beats, but 432 hertz just calms you right back down, and you just fall asleep to it.
Mm-hmm. I think that is the energetic, what is it, wavelength of the earth. And so you're attuning, I think your body's attuning to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you talk more about channeling? That just gets me so like excited. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, it's learning to trust yourself. Yeah, when I started, it was very much old English. It was prose. Some of it just rhymed, and I would read that back, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And then I started to discern which light beings I was talking to. But I did that through my oracle cards. I would just pick a card, shuffle the cards, and just pick a card. And I would sit with whoever it was, whichever goddess it was, or ascended master, and just ask them to tell me who they were, if they had any past lives, and if they had a message. And I would just write it all down. And then after that, I would check it on Google, and I'd be like, oh, well, I wasn't making it up.
Hmm.
So these are little exercises now
And
when
what
I
were
do
you
it.
Googling? What were you Googling after you wrote it
So
down?
after I wrote it down, I would check if anything matched, and often it did. But then when they conveyed messages, that was really meant for me. But it was powerful. And so for me now, I work a lot with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, actually Archangel Michael. I work a lot with light language because I speak light language, so I help people.
What is light language? Can,
Light language. Okay, I'm happy to give a demo. Happy to give a
oh
demo.
yeah. What?
Yeah. Yes, it's galactic healing. So it's gerbil language, as I always call it, but it is very powerful because your mind won't understand it, but on a soul level, your soul will understand it. And that's the most important thing. So it's, as another healer always tells me, it's like a shortcut to healing.
Hmm.
Um, so happy to do a demo. Do we have an intent?
Oh. Um. Well, let's see. Um. Let's see. What's you mean my intention or the intention?
Yeah, your intention. What do you want? What would you like to work on?
Yeah. Well, I'm working on a lot. I'm working on really just it's being my true authentic self, just
Yeah.
really showing up authentically for myself and for other people.
Also, you are transmuting energy. You're currently in a phase where you're transmuting energy and bringing direction. So, how do I put this? It's like carving your path into the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would that be like finding your compass and shifting that
Yep.
compass to like due north, right? It's like, well, you're a little bit, not quite there yet. I keep adjusting.
Yep. That's okay. So, we can sharpen that. Okay. So, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, I will always say, okay, so I always begin when I say to people, just close your eyes. And even for the listeners, right? Just close your eyes. And I want you to take a very deep breath in, all the way from your stomach out to your crown chakra. And then hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1. And breathe out all the way, down to your root chakra. And then again, take a really deep breath in. Hold it. And breathe out. And just keep doing that. Okay. All right. And I'm going to bring them in now. And just whatever you hear, just let it flow through your whole body. Just let the codes flow through your whole body. Uhinita la mia katia masina rani kiti aisini ati tiama katali itai masini asakia la 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 maka etia kasini alia ahaya. Hui mati alakati asini miti la 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 na ai patai maka atai ma iselari makata ayimka ati ayima sila la la Hui masinia ati titi alle patai makatiti anya le la la titi 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 ai makatiti asini la atata makatai makati ma a Winini ma ai ma atiti ma ati ma ati titi titi ma la 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 Huni mikitai ma asililiani mi isini iti atatatai ma ushinia ushinikiti mi atai ma tima ai mi sililiaya. And what they're saying is you will feel it through your head and you feel like a bit of a tugging on your heart because that's what they're healing. Sushini la mali katadi makati itema tisela la mikiti ma lai makui makatai ma tia ma silala la yai makuya. Hayamati amatai malalalea. Hushini kitale bata ini kata iti mai iti ayamatati ti amalale makati amayu. Hushini kita tatai matai mati ngai ngai tata. Hutini alalai maka asini amakai ini amatati makati apa. Hushini titi tama. Huya matiti ayama kataya matiti amala pa yamakti ayamani Shushini kitai. We may tie ma asini ma kalima tima ngayama ngay katima ayama. Aita ita ima ati ayama hisile amiki la amaiti ma atakalama atita achimita ay. Hui ni kitia ni katale matai ma isilani mata. Uinasini ma. Oy, may kitalaba ate kate ama ate miti Hoshiniki iya. And they're just saying, let it flow through you. And what they're doing is they're slowly backing off. They're saying, isinikitale mati etasiniya. They're thanking you. Ini mati iti ama ata isi inia. Iti titi. They're going to keep you in a protective bubble. Sisinikitale mati isui masate Kuya mati titi amaka ati titi ati ama. Hoshini alaka. And whenever you're ready, they say just merely open your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'll share what I experienced. I
Mm-hmm.
heard um, like two or three different voices, or it felt like two or three different, I don't know if they were archangels or ascended masters or some spirit guide. Um,
There were archangels there. That was art. I don't know which ones. And then there were, I could only see their light bodies, but they were quite tiny.
hmm. And what you said, the words that you said through it about coming in through the crown, and then the tugging in my heart, because I did
Yeah.
experience that this week, just through a experience I had with some family members.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a tugging on my heart that was uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that you said coming in through the crown chakra, because my cat, I would have to say, for the last 5 or 6 months, has been sleeping at the top of my head. And he will sleep wherever this is what I've come to recognize. My cat will sleep whatever part of my body needs attention.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, whenever I do this, Lisa, it gets me on a high.
Oh, wow. So I'm assuming there would be like more to the that we would be talking about, or I would just take that experience in and then let it sit with me and then write about it,
Yeah.
or what how does that process work?
So the process works. So when I normally do this, it's people either get very sleepy or they lie down, but it the healing kind of continues over the next day or so. And normally what happens is people will have a really good night's sleep,
Mm,
and it just integrates, because what they did is, like I said at the beginning, I believe I said they're encoding things within you.
mm-hmm,
So they were taking stuff out and encoding that, because I saw the light going through. And every time I do it, it's different, but it's really beautiful. I mean, I've seen people just heal from trauma, and just, aches and pains gone, and it's just amazingly powerful. And I always say, I'm blessed to be able to do that. I know it's not very well known. I mean, people are starting to do more light language, but I'm just a tool in the toolbox, and I'm blessed that I'm able to do this kind of work.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. And how would people find out about um, I guess getting training to be a light worker, or how can they find you to find out more information?
I always say we're all, technically speaking, we're all light workers.
Mm.
Some just haven't woken up yet, which is okay. But yeah, I mean, they can find me on powersoulhealing.com, which is my website. And then I'm not the biggest social media buff right now, but I am on Instagram and on Facebook under Universal Light Warriors.
Oh wow, I love that name. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And is it like one session? Is it many sessions? Is it different?
So it's different. I've been helping someone for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's not been a joyride. It's been tough, because people always think. So, like I said, I work with Archangel Michael, and Archangel Michael, oh, he's tough. But if you want his help when he comes through, he really puts, I mean, it's beautiful to hear, don't get me wrong, but once the session is done, things start to pop to the surface, and you need to deal with it. It's a two-way street. It's always a two-way street, with healing. And so, but with light language, it's like it just bubbles to the surface, and you've got to deal with it.
Mm.
But it is very, very beautiful. Yeah, and like I said, with the aches and pains, it's been phenomenal for people. I've even had somebody overcome her fear. I did a 5-minute session for her, and she's like, "Oh my God, I had surgery the next day," and she's like, "I wasn't even fearful anymore; it was gone."
That's great. Yeah. I did notice before we started, I had a pain in the lower right side of my neck, and it's gone now. Just gone.
It's
It's like, oh, it feels so good. Feels normal to me.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's just powerful, and you won't. I have people say, "Oh, but wait a minute," and they call me and they're like, "Oh, like you just said, like the pain's gone." They were like, "Oh, but I haven't got the pain anymore. Didn't even realize it."
Oh. Brigitta, what would you like listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Oh gosh, what would I like to say? Well, that you can be whoever you choose to be. Never let others keep putting you down, because you are beautiful. Everyone that is listening, each and every one of you is a beautiful soul. Never let people tell you otherwise. Never let society mold you, but be true to your own self, your own authentic self. And if you find yourself going through rough patches in life, then merely reevaluate your life, and sit down with yourself, reflect within rather than deflecting, because that's often what we try to do. But just sit with yourself and see how you can improve your life. You're not meant to remain, as they always say, saturated in that one experience. Because don't let life pass you by. Allow yourself to live rather than life living you. And I think that's really important. And I can say, I've let many years pass me by, but that's not it. It doesn't matter what you experience in life. There really isn't a good or bad. It's not like, well, you did that and that was wrong. No, it's merely an experience. Clock everything up to experiences. And as Saint Germain always says, he's quite funny in that he always says, life is an experiment for you to experience its many flavors and dishes. Sometimes you'll have to sweat the chilies because, yeah, you've got chaotic experiences, and sometimes you've got very, sweet experiences. But take them all and embrace yourself, love yourself, accept yourself for who you are, but also learn to accept others for who they are. And don't judge them, because that's very much the ego. Let that go and merely stay true to yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for that message. I was just taking that all in. Hmm.
Mm.
And do you have a free gift for my listeners?
Yeah, so if they well, I mean, my book is, of course, out, Becoming Authentically Me. But I always say if people want to read the first few chapters, then just get in touch with me via my website, and I'm happy to send you the first couple of chapters.
Okay, thank you so much. And all that
Mm.
information will be in the show notes too. Brigitta, thank you so much for coming on the podcast show today. It's been delightful to have you here and providing um, your light exercise with me. I feel like, whoo, that was amazing. And I can't wait to see as the day goes on, like what I notice. And I have a big smile on my face. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. And I'll leave and say, to your listeners, don't think, if you think that if you are very alone right now, just remember that both Lisa and myself love you.
Yes, we sure do. I love all of you, including
Mm.
myself.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in today. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. This is Lisa Lewis reminding each and every one of you that you are okay. Until next time, be well. Thank you for listening today at Am I Okay podcast. If you are loving the show, please rate, review, and subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform. Also, if you would like to learn how to manage situations as a highly sensitive person, discover your unique gift as a highly sensitive person, and learn how to be comfortable in your own skin, I offer a free 8-week email course called Highly Sensitive People. Just go to amiokpodcast.com to sign up. In addition, I love hearing from my listeners. Drop me an email to let me know what is on your mind. You can reach me at lisa@amiokpodcast.com. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the publisher, or the guest are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or any other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.